Praise the Most High Yahuwah. I give you glory and honor, and I pray the hearers of this word would be transformed by the renewing of their mind. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Welcome to Into All Truth. Let's get into it, family. So today's message is called, What Did We Miss in the Wilderness? Why must Israel return there again to become priests of the earth? Everyone wants to know what will happen and why, so this is my attempt to answer those questions. And of course, this is a continuation from my series on The Economist, as well as how will we come out in the Exodus. And also I did a message on the 1/3 that have already been sifted out. So this is continuing from all of those if you want to go back and watch them. I know it's been a while since I did my last video, so this is going to be another long one because it's taken a really long time to research. And there is a little giveaway gem in this video. Not something I'm giving away, but something that Harry Rosen is giving away in my video, but you're gonna have to watch the whole thing. It's a long video, but it's definitely hidden in here, which some people will be the final confirmation of certain things. So watch the whole thing. So as we begin to contemplate our return to the Mount of Yah of Jerusalem, I wanted to take a look at Hosea 12:9, which says, I am Yahweh, who will yet make thee to dwell in tabernacles, as in the days of the solemn feast. So that's Sukkot. And Nehemiah 18:15 says, literally, it's though we'll be camouflaged in booths made of branches and leaves. It says, go forth unto the mount and fetch olive branches and pine branches, myrtle branches, palm branches of thick trees, and make booths, as it is written. And these are all special incense trees, fragrant trees. So we are to become a fragrant incense offering and like good trees. So what did we miss in the wilderness that the 144,000 will obtain? What was Yisrael supposed to do, and why did they not do it? Is Israel protected in the trial? How and why? And what and where is the mountain in the wilderness? What are examples we can look to, including Yeshua, to answer these questions? And what is the significance of the rock of the mount? This video seeks to answer those questions. It is a long one, but I notice more and more my viewers tend to be more informed in a smaller group. And my subscribers complain that they can't find my videos, so please hit the like and notification button. So when Moshe goes to the king of Egypt, Moshe says to the Pharaoh, let us go on a journey of 3 days in the desert that we may offer sacrifices to Yahweh. So 3 days journey, then 1 day sacrificing to do the Passover, and then they're going to turn around and come back. And that equals 7 days, which is the number of the years of the trial and the tribulation. 3 days is the number of days that Yeshua was dead and risen, as was Lazarus, and as was Jonah in the belly of the fish. And 3.5 days is the number of years that Yeshua did his. So what do you suppose was supposed to happen in the desert? The promise to Pharaoh was to go to Passover for 3 days journey and then to come back and return, possibly to be priests unto the nations. But Pharaoh wouldn't allow it. So he lost that blessing. The word says we're strangers and sojourners in a strange land, as were all of our fathers. Yeshua even said, this is not my home, but that the kingdom of heaven is at hand and it's coming down from above. Even Abraham was a stranger and a sojourner until he went up the Mount of Yah alone with Isaac. After that, he was settled. So what can we learn from Abraham when he went up the mountain, and from the Shunammite when she went up Mount Carmel, about taking the journey of raising a son to life? Now, the Shunammite was a wealthy woman who was blessed with a son by Elijah, and the son later died. And so she had to go through certain steps to have him resurrected. And this is what she has in common with Abraham and his sacrifice of Isaac. After circumcising himself, Abraham is told this time next year, Sarah will have a child. And the Shunammite had prepared a place for the priest/prophet to stay, Elisha. And she was told the same thing. Next year, this time, you will have a child. So essentially, we face the same question. Shall a nation be born in a day? A day is a year. So just like Abraham prepared his heart with circumcision and the Shunammite prepared a home for the prophet, so we have to prepare our hearts and our temple for Yeshua to inhabit us. There is a lot of contention about the location of Mount Sinai. Some think it's Mount Hermes, Mount Zion, Jerusalem. Sometimes they are all synonymous. But what Abraham is told is to go up Mount Moriah. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and get thee to the land of Moriah, and offer him for a burnt offering. And Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his ass, and took 2 of his men with him. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering. Burnt offering is mentioned 4 times in this part of the story. And of course, we all know how it goes, that Abraham binds Isaac to the altar. And Isaac complies. He allows himself to be bound to this covenant, to be bound to this altar. A marriage is a form of binding people as well. And he has the wood and everything ready. And Yah provides himself as the sacrifice. He provides a ram that's caught in the bushes. In a sense, Isaac is taken up a mountain and symbolically raised from the dead. So Elijah is looked after by a woman who is called a great woman, who is a Shunammite. Now, the Shunammite were the descendants of Ishkar, the northern kingdom. And David actually had a Shunammite wife at the end of his life who was younger and who was much contended over later. And Solomon also had a Shunammite wife. And this Shunammite had prepared, as I said before, a place for Elisha to stay in on his journeys. And he blessed her with a son. And when the child went out with his father to the reapers in the field, he fell ill, his head was hurting, and he died in his mother's lap later. So what the Shunammite woman does is she goes up Mount Moriah to Elisha, and she catches him by the feet and demands that he come back and revive her son. So he returns and he stretches himself over the child, and the child sneezes 7 times, like the 7 years, and opens his eyes. So just like the Holy Spirit hovered over the earth and breathed life into man, so this is how Elijah raises the Shunammite son from the dead. And she must go up Mount Moriah in order to obtain this blessing of resurrection. So we know that Israel is to be reborn in a day. And we know from Elijah's story of dry bones that this dead nation must be revived. So I want to look at Moshe and the burning bush that is not consumed for more clues as to what will happen on the mountain. Because Moshe, the key thing that he knows is that any bushes burn all the time in the desert, and they're always consumed, but this one was not consumed. Moshe would have had to have been quite a special person to notice that the bush was not consumed by the fire. So according to the word, it says, now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and there came to the mountain of Yah, even to Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai. And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked and beheld the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And Moshe turned aside to see this great sight, why the bush was not consumed. And Yah called to him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. And Moshe said, Here am I. Now the significant thing is that Yah is in the midst of a fire and speaking to him. And when we look at Deuteronomy 4:23, we notice that when the mountain is discussed and Yah being on the mountain, it says, Out of heaven he made thee to hear his voice, that he might instruct thee upon the earth, and showed thee his great fire, and thou heard his words, mountain. And the mountain burned with fire in the midst of heaven with darkness, cloud, and thick darkness. And yahuwah spoke to you out of the midst of the fire, and you heard the sound of the words, but saw no form. You heard only a voice out of the midst of the fire. So we see that Yah is, even on the mountain, he's speaking out of the midst of the fire. And then when we look at the menorah, we understand that Yeshua is the servant light in the midst of the two sets of three lights in the menorah. Hallelujah. And the lights themselves are set in almond branches. And on either side of the menorah are two olive trees connected to feed oil to the center lamp in the midst. And so what's interesting here is that we have Yah speaking out of the center of the bush, speaking out of the center of the fire in the mountain, and Yeshua being at the center of the menorah. And we see that two sticks become one to feed oil to the menorah through the menorah. And when we look at Leviticus 6:13, and when we understand, when we're talking about an altar according to Levitical law should never, ever go out. Sacrifices for peace and incense should never go out. And so we see with the Shunammite who's married to the old man going up the mountain, with Moshe going up the mountain, with Isaac going up the mountain, there's some sort of a sacrifice going on. And in the midst of the fire, we understand that Yah is in the midst. And that's why we hear him say, I will be a ring of a fire all around you and in the midst of you. Now, another clue that we have to what might go on at the time of repatriation is that it was around the time of Shavuot, around the time of the Feast of Weeks, sort of around June, that they entered into Mount Sinai. And so it was in the third month, and they were told that they shall be unto Yah a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And what they saw was that Mount Sinai, again, was altogether smoke, because Yah descended upon it in the fire. And the smoke thereof ascended as smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And they said to Moshe, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not Yah speak with us, lest we die. And the people stood afar off, and Moshe drew near unto the thick darkness where Yah was. So this is pretty exciting. They get told they're going to be a kingdom of priests and holy nation, according to 1 Peter 2:9, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Revelations 1:6, and he has made us kings of priests unto Yah and his Father. In Revelations 5:10, and he has made us unto our Yah kings and priests, and we will reign on the earth. So why aren't they excited about this? Why don't they run up the mountain? Well, probably for the same reasons why we're excited, but we're reticent. There's a lot of familiar scripture here. We see yahuwah descend upon it in fire, and the smoke is of a furnace, and the whole mountain quakes. Well, when we look at Abraham's first major encounter with Yah, we see a lot of similarities here. You know, obviously he lays out animals to be sacrificed, and he drives away the birds of the air. But this is at a time when the sun is going down, and a horror of great darkness falls upon him in Genesis 15:9 through 18 here. And we see also that there is a smoking furnace and a burning light that passes through the animal sacrificial pieces that Abram has laid out. So, and this is all connected to the prophecy of the children of Israel being strangers in a strange land and going to be afflicted and slaves. So this is kind of the associations they may have been making, and they're right to make them. And you can freeze this and look at this chart, because they knew that they had only been in about 200 years of slavery, not 400. So you can read the scriptures that Abraham all the way to Moshe were only in Canaan and Egypt for 430 years. So with all the terror of the fire on the mountain, they refused to go up the mount of Yah. And when they saw the appearance of Moshe, this also caused them to fear, to the point where he had to veil his face. And it came to pass when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai with the tablets of the commandments in his hands, the skin of his face shone when he talked with Yah. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moshe, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. So this is a very familiar picture. So Yeshua takes James, John, and Peter up to a high mountain, and there he is transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. And then there appeared before them Moshe and Elijah talking with Yeshua. And so this is a very familiar kind of a story where we see the two olive trees, and in the midst of them is the lampstand. Zechariah chapter 4, 1 through verse 14. And the angel that talked with me came again and waked me as a man out of a sleep, and said unto me, What do you see? And I said, I have looked. Behold, a candlestick all of gold, with a bowl on top of it, with Yah's 7 lamps on it, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps which are on the top of it, and 2 olive trees by it, one on the right side of the bowl, and the other on the left side. So I answered and said to the angel that talked with me, What are these, my Lord? Then the angel that talked with me answered and said to me, Don't you know what they are? And I said, No, my Lord. Then he answered and said, This is the word of yahuwah to Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith yahuwah of hosts. Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, thou shalt become a plain, and he shall bring forth the headstone thereof with shoutings, crying, Grace, grace unto it. Moreover, the word of Yah came to me, saying, The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it, and you shall know that Yahweh of hosts hath sent me to you. For who has despised the day of small things. For they shall rejoice, and they shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel with those 7. They are the eyes of yahuwah, which run to and fro through the whole earth. And then I answered and said to him, What are these 2 olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick, and upon the left side thereof? And I answered again and said to him, What are these 2 olive branches, which through the 2 golden pipes empty golden oil out of themselves? And he answered me and said, Don't you know what these are? And I said, No, my Lord. Then he said, These are the 2 anointed ones that stand by yahuwah of the whole earth. So the mountain is Hasatan and his mountain. So the 2 witnesses, their oil is feeding into the lampstand, into the midst of the fire where Yeshua is. And this is why it says salvation is of the Yahudim. Israel is my firstborn son. Because part of the work that Moshe and Elijah did is feeding the work of Yeshua as the center light, as the fire in the midst. This is their service as priests unto the nations and Yeshua. Now, what's interesting is that when Yeshua is on the mountain, you see the face is transformed by the presence of Yah. Okay, the fire in the midst transforms them. But there is a lot of contention about which mountain Yeshua took the apostles up. And a lot of them say, again, it was Mount Hermon, which is Mount Zion. And this is where Azazel and the 200 angels, according to the book of Enoch, one of the books found complete with the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is where Azazel and the 200 angels descended to take wives of the daughters of men, according to the first book of Enoch. Okay? And that is considered the gates of hell. So then, we have Peter's speech about, let's set up 3 shelters for you and Moses and Elijah. But then what happens is a bright cloud envelops them, and then a voice comes from the cloud saying, This is my son whom I love, and in him I am well pleased. Please listen to him. What Yeshua says is, don't tell anyone what you've seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Okay, so also this is Yeshua going up the mountain to point to the fact that he will be transformed after he is raised from the dead. Just as the 144,000 will be transformed after they're raised from the dead. And so 1 Thessalonians talks about how we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with him in the clouds to meet Yahuwah in the air, so we'll ever be with Yahuwah. And so this is meeting with the dark cloud of Yah that has descended upon the mountain. This is not going up into heaven. So this is a clue as to what will be experienced on the mount, which we'll get to later, and how we will be changed. But what further evidence is there, according to Scripture, that we shall be changed? 2 Corinthians 5. For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of Yah, an house not made with human hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan earnestly, desiring to be clothed upon with our house, which is from heaven. So this is the heavenly body that we are transformed into, so that by being clothed we shall not be found naked. For we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that we should be unclothed, but be clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life. So we are desiring to be clothed with the heavenly body. And just like an altar is made of stone, not cut out with human hands, you cannot use a chisel on an altar, so the human who is transformed into a precious stone in Yeshua as an altar unto Yah, because we know the saints cry out beneath the altar in heaven, they become a temple not built with human hands. You know that the 12 tribes all have 12 stones whose builder and foundation is Yah. And so we see even when David wants to build a temple for Yah, it seems to be an odd suggestion to Yah, because his own creation is his cathedral. That's why in the wilderness, the booths are made with the branches of leaves of the trees, of the fragrant incense trees. And that is why Israel are stones, and the human temple formed by the hand of Yah becomes the temple for him to dwell in. And that is why the altar, again, is not cut with human hands. So a lot of us are very concerned about the trial, but we know that we can trust Yah. And of course, I've already done a video on the 1/3 remnant of Yisrael that has already been sifted out since the fall of the temple. And so here we return to this theme of the fire on the mountain, when Yah says, "And I will bring a third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and I will try them as gold is tried. And they shall call on my name, and I will hear them, and I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, Yah is my Elohim." So you can see my 1/3 remnant video if you like. But clearly, this is said for our comfort and our assurance, because the character of Yah is good. And so the fiery trials that we will enter into going forwards are going to be for our resurrection from the dead, for us to be revived, as Isaac was, as Yeshua said he would be, as the Shunammite's son was resurrected after she went up the mountain. Isaiah 43, 1-2. "But now thus saith Yahuwah that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Yisrael. Fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name. Thou art mine. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee." So a fire walk testing is a familiar scenario, and we know that at the fall of the temple, it occurred, as I showed you in my 1/3 video. 1/3 were purged by fire, and a 1/3 remnant was left over. But there's another example of fire walking, and that is with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And he answered and said, "Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of Yah." So just like Yeshua sits in the midst of the flame of the menorah, and Yah speaks from the midst of the bush and the midst of the fiery mountain, and he says, "I will be a flame of fire around you and in the midst of you." He will take us through the fire, because he is gracious and loving, good, holy Yah. And there are even more examples of signposts for Judah and Joseph via the prophets and the prophetesses, who, as I say, always live out what Israel will endure, so we can have an example of hope. And so this particular example of the widow of Zarephath is encouraging, and it takes place during a time of famine. And Zarephath actually means refiner's fire. And when we come upon the widow, she is carrying 2 sticks. And what Elisha is told is to get thee to Zarephath, which belongs to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I've commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. It's a place in Palestine, so this is in the northern kingdom. And she is gathering 2 sticks to make a last meal for her and her son. What Elisha says to her is, thus saith yahuwah, Yah of Israel, the barrel of meal shall not waste, and neither shall the cruse of oil fail, until the day that yahuwah sendeth rain upon the earth. This is highly symbolic because it means the oil of the burning light and the word of Yah shall not fail thee until the time when Yah comes. And until rain comes. So if we encounter a famine, Yah will provide. And so because she feeds and accommodates the prophet, she and her son are able to live, and they have sufficient food and oil. So it came to pass after these things that the son of the woman fell sick, and his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. So again, Elijah has to revive this son. He must be wondering what's going on. So he stretches himself out over this son 3 times. Then Yahuwah heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him, and he revived and delivered him unto his mother. And Elijah said, see, thy son liveth. So this is another symbol. We have the bread and the oil that does not run out during the famine, during the trial. And because of that, Israel is able to preach. The widow and the son are able to preach the coming of the kingdom to the ends of the earth, and then the son dies and is raised again. So again, we see the prophets living out what will eventually happen, what happens in Yeshua as our Savior, and then what will happen to Israel as the firstborn son. So here is another final example, and this is Elijah and the prophet's widow with the 2 sons. And this analogy is really clearly pointing to the captivity of Israel and the captivity of the 2 sons, Judah and Joseph, or Judah and Ephraim. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of prophets unto Elijah, saying, thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. So this is Judah and Ephraim, to be in bondage for 400 years. And Elijah said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, thine handmaid have not anything in the house save a pot of oil. Then he said, go borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors. And when thou art come in, shut the door on yourself and your sons, and you shall pour out into all those vessels, and set aside all of the full vessels. Once she had filled up all the vessels, she came and she told the man of Yah, and he said, now go, sell the oil, and pay the debt. And you and your children live on the rest. So she wasn't supposed to sell all of it. She had to live herself and her sons on the rest. So this is Judah and Joseph going into captivity and giving oil to their brothers and sisters and to the Gentiles, and paying their sin debt in this oil of the name of Yah. And of course, the dead husband is Yeshua. And it is not said whether she is from the northern or the southern kingdom, because quite clearly she is likely from both. So essentially, Israel in all of this becomes like the burning bush that is not consumed. When we look at the menorah, it is usually made from almond wood, and almond is called sakad. And sakad, an almond, is associated with being watchful, with being a watcher, like an almond, to become watchers, watchmen. And the angels were known as the watchers, and the prophets were known as the watchmen. The original believers were called Nazarenes, which means watchmen. They never called themselves Christians. The almonds adorn the candlesticks. And we know that Aaron held the budding rod of an almond branch to affirm his leadership during some of the trials during the Exodus. So when we talk about the example of Aaron in Numbers 17:8, it says, "Now it came to pass on the next day that Moshe went into the tabernacle of the witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron of the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth buds, and had produced blossoms and yielded ripe almonds. On the lampstand itself 4 bowls shall be made like almond blossoms, each one with its ornamental knob and flower. Almonds are both nuts and fruits." The trees of the Gentiles generally throughout the word are like oaks, cedars. They're fruitless trees, but they're still good trees. Nebuchadnezzar is an oak tree. Cyrus is a cedar tree. And when Lot is visited by the angels, Abraham is told that the angels go to see if there are any trees in Sodom. In other words, any tall, standing, good trees among the Gentile nations. Of course, the trees of the Hebrews are fruitful trees, like olive trees and fig trees. And so the menorah is almost like a mix of the two. So it's almost like it's a nut tree. It's like a wooden fruit. And it's interesting because the great fire that we shall become and is not consumed actually is the very throne room of Yah. And that's why the testing and the trial, because in fact he will protect us. How will he protect us? I've already shown you with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and these other examples. He will protect us if we seek him as our reward. According to Psalm 27:4 through 8, the word says, "One thing have I desired of Yahuwah, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of Yahuwah all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of Yahuwah and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He will set me upon a rock. And shall mine head be lifted up above my enemies round about me? Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing praises unto Yahuwah." And then Matthew 7:25 says, "And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock." So not only is Yeshua the rock, the firm foundation upon which we are founded, but going up the mountain of Yah, which is also Yeshua, is our firm foundation, is our tabernacle that lifts us above the enemies around the world who come against Israel, who are the rock, who have become now like Yeshua. And so Isaiah talks about Yahuwah having this plan. "Behold, I am the one who has laid as a foundation in Zion a stone, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone, of a sure foundation. Whoever believes will not be in haste. Built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Yahshua himself being the cornerstone. For Psalm 118:22, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone, the foundation upon which we are built and Jerusalem is built, because we become Jerusalem. We become the stones of the mountain and the stones of the temple. And so this is how both Israel and Yeshua become the sign. In that day, saith the yahuwah of hosts, I will take thee, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, saith Yahweh, and I will make thee as a signet seal, a sign and a wonder, for I've chosen thee, says Yahweh of hosts. So every good mountain is a type of Yeshua. He is our foundation and cornerstone. And there are bad mountains that will be destroyed by the mountain of Yeshua and his servants, shouting grace, grace, and mercy unto his children. That will be the destruction of the mountains of Hasatan. So the Jerusalem in the mount will be inhabited as towns without walls for the multitude of men and cattle therein. And Yahuwah says, I will be a wall of fire round about her, and will be glory in the midst of her.
So we have heard of Mount Zion, or the holy mountain, being called Sinai, Hermon, Carmel. So where exactly is it? I believe, and this is just my theory, this is theory now, Mount Carmel may be on the way there, as Jerusalem of today is called Sodom and Egypt, and as Jerusalem will come down from the sky.
Mount Zion is not going to be where Jerusalem currently is, and we really have to question where it is. Now, the pictographs for Mount Carmel are a calf, which is an open hand, a resh, which is a head, mem, which is to cross over water or water, and the lamed, or staff. It's known as and symbolizes a cultivated garden, a fruitful, plentiful field or place, tender ear of corn, forest like a garden, the early grain. It is a forest, a garden of trees, and notice that we are told to clothe ourselves in myrtle, palm, and olive, a number of different trees for our tabernacle. It is in the area of Asher, where the Shunammite came from, and it is near Jezreel, which is what Israel will be called once it is planted and resown. Between Jezreel and Mount Carmel is the Mount of Armageddon, and Jezreel was purged of Jezebel, the 900 prophets of Baal, and the murder of Nahor by Jezebel for the field of Nahor was avenged in Jezreel. This is where fire came down on the mountain when Elijah confronted the 400 prophets of Baal, and then from there he ran to Jezreel. Then when you look at the name Carmel, again it starts with a calf, which is an open hand, and it can also look exactly like a menorah, just like the fire on the mountain. We know its numerical value is 20 or 2, so a union. So that can be Solomon and the Shunammite, David and the Shunammite, or Ephraim and Judah, otherwise known as Joseph and Judah, unifying, or Israel unifying with Yah. And this can take the form of Solomon and the Shunammite. So it's like the open hand of a groom inviting a bride, or the open hand of Yah speaking to us, welcoming us, speaking to us comfortably in the wilderness, taming us, allowing us in, bending, yielding to us in a comforting way. An open hand in marriage to the head, we cross over water or are baptized, and then we are shepherded. Carmel overlooks the water and just is upland from the tongue of the Egyptian Sea. And on the other side of it to the east is the Euphrates area. So this is exactly where the return in the Exodus will occur again. This is the area that is crossed over, split into 7 seas so that Israel can cross over into the Promised Land, which I mentioned in part 2 of my second Exodus video if you want more information. So what else about Mount Carmel is of greater significance? Carmel is heavily referenced in Song of Solomon. In Song of Solomon, it says, "Thine head upon thee is like Carmel, and the hair of thine head like purple. The king is held in the galleries." So we know the purple crocuses are on Mount Sinai. My beloved is bright and burnished, the chiefest among 10,000. His head is as the most fine gold. His locks are bushy and black as a raven. His hands are as gold rings set in beryl, and his belly is as bright as ivory overlaid with sapphires. His legs are as pillars of marble, set in sockets of gold. His countenance is as Lebanon, excellent as the cedars. So the burnished brass is forged in a fire on a mountain. And we have the head of gold in the name. And we, of course, have the cloud round about, the black cloud that Yeshua comes in. The ivory tower where Yeshua is. Later I'll show you a scripture from the book of Enoch that shows that the Mount of Yah is capped with a sapphire stone. And of course, Lebanon is the gateway to Mount Carmel. And his legs are like cedar of Lebanon. My beloved cometh leaping on the mountains, skipping on the hills. He standeth behind our wall or ladder. Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away, for lo, winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing birds is come. So here we have the song that the 144,000 sing. Winter is over. We are invited to come away. The crocus, the purple crocuses or flowers are springing forth on the mountain. And he comes skipping on the mountain. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs, and the vines tender with the grapevine are a good smell. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away, O my dove. Thou art in the clefts of the rock, in the secret places of the stairs. So this is Moshe talked about how Yah hid him in the cleft of the rock as the presence of Yah came down upon the mountain. So this is what's going to happen again. Only Israel will not be afraid. I am come into my garden, my sister, my spouse. Carmel is a garden. I have gathered my myrrh with my spice. We're wearing myrrh. I sleep, but my heart waketh. It is the voice of my beloved that knocketh. This is the voice on the mountain. And this is, behold, I stand at the door and knock, which is what Yeshua says. And this is part of the West African Hebrew marriage ceremony, to knock at the door, saying, open to me, my sister, my love, my dove. The dove is the Holy Spirit and peace. In the West African marriage ceremony, the bride waits a year. Shall a child be born in a year? To look into the family. The groom looks into the family. Then if he wants to marry her, he knocks at the door. She then lets him in. My undefiled, my head is filled with the dew, and my locks with the drops of the night. Now isn't a cloud over the mountain like dew descending? Here's more on Mount Carmel, 2 Chronicles, and in Carmel, for he loved husbandry. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice even with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given unto it, the excellency of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of Yahuwah and the excellency of our Yah. As I live, says the King, whose name is Yahuwah of hosts, surely as Tabor is among the mountains, and as Carmel is by the sea, so he shall come. That's Jeremiah 46. The earth mourneth and languisheth. Lebanon is ashamed and hewn down. Sharon is like a wilderness, and Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruit. And of course, we know all about the fig tree, the fruit tree. And of course, Bashan can't be Holy Mount Zion because it is a name for Mount Hermon. Bashan is known for fruitful sandy soil. The house that is built on sand will not last. It's known as the house plowed with sin, where the 200 angels came down to go into and mate with women. The Hebrew letters are Bet, Shin, and then this last symbol is a symbol of like a plow. So it's a land sown in sin. The sons of Yah saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Genesis, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Yah came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and they became the mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Now, I tend to go back and forth on the extra biblical books outside of the 80 books of the Bible, but I do find there is some validity in them as long as it agrees with what's in the 80 books. So I wanted to take a look at Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, both of them were found complete amongst the texts of the Ethiopians, the last known empire of Judah. They carried the scepter until the 1970s for over 3,000 years. If you don't agree with that, please don't comment on my channel. Looking here at Shem's lot, what we see according to the word is, and there came forth on the writing as Shem's lot the middle of the earth, which he should take as an inheritance for himself and his sons for the generations of eternity. So where's the middle of the earth? And it extends west to Afra. Shem's lot, chapter 8. And it extends towards the east till it reaches the Garden of Eden, to the south thereof, to the south. And from the east of the whole land of Eden, it seems like Eden is actually part of it. In the biblical or Enochian geography, Africa is south, Japheth's land is north, so Ham's land is south, Japheth's land is north, and Shem's land is east and at the center of the earth. And the west, to the west, is where all destruction happens, where the sun goes down. Further to Shem's lot being in Eden, and he knew that the Garden of Eden is the Holy of Holies and the dwelling of yahuwah, and Mount Sinai, the center of the desert, and Mount Zion, the center of the navel of the earth. And these were created as holy places facing each other. So this is at the center of the earth. And if you watch my video on the true location of Israel, Israel is where Israel is now, but it's been moved by the continental shifts. So where was it previously before Pangea? And Noah blessed the Most High Elohim, who had put the word of yahuwah into his mouth, and yahuwah forevermore, and he knew that a blessed portion and a blessing had come to Shem and his sons unto the generations forever. The whole land of Eden, and the whole land of the Red Sea, and the whole land of the east, and India, and the land of Lebanon, and the islands to Kafur, and all the mountains of Sinur and Amana, and the mountains of Ashur in the north, and the land of Elam and Ashur and Babel and Suzanne and Medai, and all the mountains of Ararat, and the region beyond the sea, which is beyond the mountains of Ashur towards the north, a blessed and spacious land, and all that is in it is very good. That's Jubilees chapter 8. So this area is where the water descends from above. It's the navel of the earth, the Ishi, which means husband. It also means apple of Yah's eye. And doesn't this look more like a rose, a lily of the field, and the apple of Yah's eye? Doesn't it make sense that Israel would have been removed from the center of the earth just as Adam and Eve were? Is Israel to be hidden in Mount Zion at the center of the world? Here's some excerpts from the book of Enoch. I only believe in the first one. And thus, the 12 gates of the 4 quarters of heaven are complete. They call the first quarter eastern because it is the first, and they call the second the south because there the Most High descends, and there especially the one who is blessed forever descends. And I saw 7 rivers on the earth, larger than all the other rivers. One of them comes from the east and pours out its waters into the great sea. So if we look at this image, we're seeing probably something different from what's described in pieces down south where Israel is. So remember I did a video piecing Africa back together into this flat earth Pangea scenario, and see we have several different sets of 7 rivers. In Isaiah it says Yah will devote to destruction the gulf of the Mitzrayim Sea. It says that Yah will split the river Euphrates into 7 streams for men to cross with dry sandals. And you see up here at the top of the earth there are 7 rivers at several different sets of these great 4 rivers coming out of the center of the earth where water comes down from heaven. So you can see how this would be done if everything was reconnected or sourced back to the original rivers. I think the Mitzrayim Sea may actually be North America and not the Egyptian Sea, because it is Mitzrayim, not necessarily Egypt proper. According to Jubilees and Jasher and Enoch, the west is always devoted to destruction. The yellow portion on the bottom right is where Africa fits back into this plain earth geography Pangea. So here's more description. The 2 of them come from the north to the sea and pour out their water into the Erythraean Sea to the east. So this is 2 of the rivers. And the remaining 4 flow out on the side of the north to their seas. Now, if you look at the Erythraean Sea, it's actually the sea that is just southeast of Israel. And it is what they call the Persian Gulf, because that is where the Euphrates then becomes the Erythraean Sea on the other side of Israel. It says, and then they led me to a place of storm, these are angels, to a mountain, the tip of whose summit reached to heaven. And I saw lighted places and thunder on the outermost ends, in its depths a bow of fire, and arrows and their quivers, and a sword of fire. That's the sword guarding Eden, and all the flashes of lightning. And again I raised my eyes to heaven and saw a high roof with 7 water channels on it, and those channels discharged much water into an enclosure. So this is the enclosure that is around the earth, the Shemayim, which is blue. That's the water that is surrounding us above the firmament. And the water also comes down to the earth in order to create this great sea at the center of the earth. So we're going to get into the Shemayim and the mountains of Yah, and where Hasatan is, and what will happen at the very end of times, and the great rock and Jerusalem coming down in part 2. Like I said, you guys, I always do long videos, and if you're too impatient to listen, I always say just listen to it in pieces and just remember your place. Don't be impatient, because I'm doing this because it's very important for everyone. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yah, and have the testimony of Yeshua HaMashiach. So Satan has been mad with the children of Yah since the beginning. Why is he so mad at this particular time? Satan, the prince of Tyre. Though you soar aloft like the eagle, though your nest is among the stars, from there I will bring you down, says Yahuwah. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend to heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yah, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like God. Ezekiel 28, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyre, thus saith the Most High, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the seat of the Most High in the midst of the seas, yet thou art a man, and not a God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. So Satan has become just a man now also. And for even more information on the location of the Devil's Mountain, we know that Satan took Yeshua to a particular mountain. And the devil took him up on an exceedingly high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And so then Yeshua is tested by the enemy. And afterwards the devil leaves him, and behold, angels come and minister to him. And so this is a picture of those of us who will eventually be transformed into angels and ministers of Yeshua, who will then minister to him again in the future. Ezekiel 28, Son of man, go take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyre, and say unto him, Thus saith the Most High, Thou sealest up the sum, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of Yah. Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The stones of fire, these are in Enoch. By the multitude of thy merchandise I have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of Yah, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. So this is where Satan is cast out of the center of the earth. So this is why the stars fall from the sky when the woman goes to give birth. And this is why he's fallen out of the heavens, out of his kingdom, at the center of the earth. And then he has no choice but to go and make war with the remnant. So we were created to serve. You can look at my Falling Stars videos for more detail, but we were created as sons of Yah, just like the angels. And when we fell, just like the angels, we lost that status. And so here's scriptures confirming that we will return to this status in Yeshua HaMashiach. Yeshua replied, at the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. But as many as received him, to them he gave the power to become the sons of Yah, even to them that believed on his name. Romans 8. For as many as are led by the Spirit of Yah, they are the sons of Yah. Romans 8:19. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of Yah. Philippians, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of Yah without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as the lights in the world. 1 John 3:1. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called the sons of Yah. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. 1 John 3:2. Beloved, now are we the sons of Yah, and it doth not appear what we shall be, but we know that When he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. So 1/3 of the nations are destroyed, 1/3 of the angels fell. We replace the angels. Hasatan gets cast out of the mountain, and we go up. But how does this happen? Well, we know that north is up, usually in language, and south is down. For example, when Abraham is told to leave the land of Canaan, he goes down to Egypt. And Russia, the land of Japheth and Gog and Magog, is up north, close to the center of the earth. Recently, we found out, it's been talked about for quite a while, that the people in Israel who are claiming to be Israel but are not, the Ashkenazis, who are descendants of Gomer and Japheth, are retreating to and planning on retreating to the Ukraine, where they come from originally, to a Khazaria 2.0, which is up in the north. So I am proposing that Russia, as the military and power capital of Hasatan's new realm, is positioning himself to attack the great mountain at the center of the earth again this way. Thus saith Yahuwah, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. So then here again is another indication that there is heading up to the center of the earth. Now this is just my theory, and it's scripturally based, but it's based on the books outside of the 80 book canon. So there's always room for being mistaken there. Although I've been reading Enoch lately, and there's so many precepts in Enoch, the first book of Enoch. It's very valid. So Hasatan will shift. I believe his spiritual power will fully relocate to Sodom and Egypt, which is the fake Jerusalem right now, and the temple that is being constructed for him to be worshipped there as the Antichrist, as the new Christ, until Gog and Magog is able to come up against the hidden village in the mountain where Yah will be protecting his children before they are transformed fully upon the coming of Yeshua. So let's just take a look at how Yah will war against the mountain of the enemy. Sinai was altogether a smoke, because Yahuwah descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. So, we have to address how all of this will come about, the shifting of the lands and everything. So we've just looked at Enoch and some of the other books that have talked about the fact that the two opposing mountains are Mount Sinai and the holy Mount of Zion. And so Mount Sinai is still technically in Israel and could technically be the Mount of Hasatan, his Mount Hermon. It's like the War of the Two Towers. Many people say everything will be replaced. And there are multiple earthquakes during the tribulation and the judgment. Psalm 68, the earth shook, the heavens also dropped at the presence of Yah. Even Sinai itself was moved at the presence of Yah, Yah of Yisrael. So we heard that it was moved before. So it just might be moved again. And of course, a lot of other things are going to be moving. And I think a lot of things back to the original pre-Pangea. So everything shall be replaced. Zechariah 4, who are you, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? You shall become a plain, and he shall bring forth the capstone with shouts of grace, grace to it. So what is this about? Because we know that Yeshua is both the cornerstone and the capstone. And so later on, I'll get to some references in the book of Enoch that refer to this capstone. Another scripture is in Matthew 16:18, where Yahshua declares Peter the rock of his church, his confession of faith. That thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So we know that they were actually at Philippi near Mount Hermon when he made this statement. And again, Mount Hermon is Bashan, and it is where the angels descended to mate with the daughters of men. And lastly, it says, and Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief, verily I say to you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. So it sounds like some mountain somewhere has to be moved again. And so not only do I believe that the people of Israel will be removed on a mountain, I believe also the mountains of the earth of the fallen ones, the mountains of the fallen ones will also be removed. And Jerusalem currently is close to Mount Hermon, and it is called Sodom and Egypt. The book of Enoch says in chapter 1, and the eternal Yah will tread from there upon Mount Sinai, and he will appear with his host, and will appear in the strength of his power from heaven. And all will be afraid, and the watchers will shake and fear, and great trembling will seize them up to the ends of the earth. And the high mountains will be shaken, and the high hills will be laid low, and will melt like wax in a flame. And the earth shall sink, and everything that is on the earth will be destroyed, and there will be judgment upon all, and upon all the righteous. But for the righteous he will make peace, and he will keep safe the chosen, and mercy will be upon them. They will all belong to Yah, and will prosper and be blessed, and the light of Yah will shine upon them. So what scriptures go along with this precept? Isaiah 60 verses 1 through 3 say, arise and shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of yahuwah is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But yahuwah shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to the light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. So here's more to the reordering of the earth. Revelation 6:12. At the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, the moon blood, and the stars of heaven fell to earth. Heaven departs as a scroll, and every mountain and island is removed out of their places. Also, in Revelation 7, we see that the 144,000 are before the throne of Yah, and they serve him day and night. And this happens at the sixth seal, like as on the sixth day, when Yeshua took the disciples up the Mount of Transfiguration, Peter and John. So there's a direct correlation here, and here's some more scriptures. Revelation 14, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven as a voice of many waters, sung, as it were, a new song before the throne, 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb wheresoever he goeth. These were the redeemed from among men, being the first fruits of Yah unto the Lamb. Okay, and they're singing this song, which I mentioned before, in Song of Solomon. So we know Song of Solomon is really the marriage song and wooing song of Yah in Yeshua to Israel. And this is the song that the 144,000 learn. And this is the singing on the mountain of Carmel. Next, we have the destroying stone that is not cut out with human hands, Daniel 2:34. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron and the clay and the bronze and the silver and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. There is a precept for this in Enoch, which I'm going to show you at the end. But as I said, and as the word says, these books were sealed up until the end, and it is the end now, so we are unsealing them as we awaken. And like I said, there is a direct correlation between mountains and trees, because the angels made a work of the trees and cut them down to erect their own pyramids. And Yeshua is a tree, Israel is a tree, and this is the remnant. The mountains are the remnant of the trees, and Yah is the greatest tree. And so Yeshua is the great tree, the great capstone that will destroy Sodom and Egypt, and that will cause us to be signed, sealed, and delivered forever. So we come back to this scripture that says, "Who art thou, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? Thou shalt become a plain, and he shall bring forth the capstone thereof with shoutings, crying, Grace, grace unto it." That's Zechariah again. In the secret mountainous place at the center of the earth, it says in Enoch 18 that the top of the throne of the mountain of Yah, there is a capstone, a throne of sapphire. And Zerubbabel was basically the first fruits of the colony of Israelites to come back from Babylon to Israel. He was a governor who rebuilt Jerusalem, and he was the grandson of King Jehoiakim. And he didn't really become a king, but it was promised to him that he would become the capstone, having laid the foundation. So he was a type and a shadow for Yeshua. He was the first to come back. That's why his name is Zerubbabel. It means sown in Babel. So he's the first to return from Babel to put the foundation down. So as the foundation, he is also the capstone. So in that sense, he's a type of Yeshua, who is both the foundation and the capstone. Zechariah, signed, sealed, and delivered. On that day, declares Yahuwah of hosts, I will take you, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, declares Yahuwah, and make you a signet ring. For I have chosen you, declares Yahuwah of hosts. 2 Timothy also says, but Yah's firm foundation stands, bearing this seal. Yahuwah knows those who are his. So we have a signet ring and a seal are the same thing. It's the way a king seals a letter and makes something law and true, and a ring is by a way by which one is married to something. It's a covenant. And so Job says, thou hast commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know its place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it. It is turned as clay to the seal, and they stand as a garment. So the earth will be shaken and turned as clay to a seal, and the final sealing of the earth in its perfect place will be done by our Savior Yeshua in this marriage process. and by the terror that comes upon the earth. And in Isaiah 11:10 it says, "And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which will stand for an ensign, a sign, a signature again to the people. Lo, it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious." And so this is the 144,000 sealed by the light that comes upon them. And this is also the seal that Yahuwah has set on his own heart. And it relates back to Song of Solomon 8:6. It says, "Set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm, for love is as strong as death, and jealousy is cruel as the grave. And the coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame." So this is all the culmination of Yah coming on the mountain with that fury and jealousy against the enemy for trying to steal his bride. And it's the final sealing of the marriage, the final covenant. And so we have, it's the wedding supper is related to all of this with the signet ring. And so as I said, in the Hebrew wedding, there's a ketubah, a whole engagement process that the West African Israelites practice. They're engaged for a year. The groom stands at the door and knocks. And if the bride and their family have investigated him and received the down payment, the bride can say that she accepts him by letting him in, and she compasses him about, and they sit at the table, and they are ready to sit down and dine together for their wedding. So, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and eat with him, and he with me. And this is how the identity of the true Hebrews is really buried in the culture. And so this is how I believe, according to Romans 11:26, "And so all Israel shall be saved, and as it's written, there shall come out of Zion a deliverer, and he shall turn away all ungodliness from Israel." So he seals the covenant and changes us. And we become this wilderness temple, where he maketh us to lie down beside still waters, and restores our soul, leading us in paths of righteousness. And so the one who is worthy to seal the earth after opening the seals, the 7th seals, is of course Yeshua, and the root of David, because he bought us with his blood out of every tribe, language, people, nation, ethnos, Gentile, heathen people even, and has made us kings and priests unto Yah, and we will reign on earth. So I decided to take a glance at Sephardic or Ashkenazi Harry Rosen's Lost Tribe of Israel site. He is a rabbi in Israel. And what do you know? It's a picture of flat earth and the Rubus Negro North Pole. And that's in Israel, this particular academy where they're looking for the lost tribes. So if that isn't confirmation, I don't know what is. So we are the precious stones, the 12 tribe stones of Israel that become the stone temples of Yah. And the precept for this again is in Enoch. And it says, "Again, I saw the cornerstone of the earth and the 4 winds which support the earth and the sky." And down to 5, "I saw the winds on the earth that support the clouds. And I went towards the south," here at 6, "and it was burning day and night, and there were 7 mountains of precious stones. And the middle one reached to heaven, like the throne of Yahuwah, of stibium or antimony. And the top of the throne was sapphire. And I saw burning fire that was in all the mountains." So this is the mountains at the center that reach up to Yah, where Yah rules from, and there's so this is the precept, again the precept for it in Enoch, which can be confirmed in Isaiah. In Isaiah it says, "O afflicted one, storm tossed and not comforted, behold, I will set your stones in antimony," so the same stone, "and lay your foundations with sapphire." So the stone of the primary mountain is antimony. Sometimes it's described as crystal. And then the capstone is sapphire. And so you see it's referenced throughout the book. And when we look at Ephesians, it says that we become fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of Yah, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Yeshua himself being the cornerstone, in whom the whole structure being joined together grows into a holy temple in Yeshua. So our body is transformed into a holy temple in Yeshua. And so we ourselves, like the stone, the rock of the mountain, are stones being built up as a spiritual house, to be as a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Yah through Yeshua. So we become like the stone of Yah. We are transformed like the angels, and we also become, just as Yeshua is the rock, we become like the rock. And just like an altar is made of stone, not cut out with human hands, you cannot use a chisel on an altar, so the human who is transformed into a precious stone in Yeshua as an altar unto Yah, because we know the saints cry out beneath the altar in heaven, they become a temple not built with human hands. Okay? And so, and we know that the 12 tribes all have 12 stones whose builder and foundation is Yah. Of Jerusalem it is said in Revelation 21, "And the building of the wall of it was of jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass. And the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth an emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th a chrysoprasus, the 11th a jacinth, and the 12th an amethyst." And where do we find these precious stones? Among the priests unto the nations. So Revelations 21 says, having the glory of Yah, her light, this is Jerusalem, okay? Having the glory of Yah, her like was unto a stone most precious, even a jasper stone, clear as crystal. Now that antimonian stone is also sometimes described as a clear as crystal stone, which sometimes corporations give to their corporate heads with a capstone of sapphire on top. So it could be either clear or the antimony silver stone, which we see in the movie Thor. So, and then it says, "And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, in them the names of the 12 apostles. And the length and the breadth and the height thereof," this is of Jerusalem, "was 144,000, which is 12 times 12,000. 12,000 times 12,000 squared is 144,000. And so that is the height and the width and the breadth of the city. Okay, squared, and its foundation stones are the stones of the 12 tribes of Israel." And so when we go into Enoch and we look at the Mount of Yeshua, Enoch 24:1, it says, "From there I went to another place of the earth, and he showed me a mountain range of fire that blazed day and night. And I went towards it, and I saw 7 magnificent mountains, and all were different from one another, and precious, beautiful stones, and all were precious." And down here to 3 and 4. And there was a seventh mountain in the middle of these, and in their height they were all like the seat of a throne, and fragrant trees surrounded it. And the angel answered me, saying, This high mountain which you saw, whose summit is like the throne of yahuwah, is the throne where the holy great one, yahuwah of glory, the eternal king, will sit when he comes down to visit the earth for good. So that is the end of the journey up the mountain. And, just be comforted that Yah will see us through the fire, because he's loving and good, and he sees us as his wife, his child, his friend, his brother. Every manifestation of loving relationship that there is, he has towards us. So though we may suffer, we can yet trust in him, and ultimately we become like him, the eternal flame on the mountain. And just as the blood of the saints cries out from the altar of Yah, so we become the altar of Yah and the eternal flame that holds his spirit and is part of him. Okay? And, because we replace HaSatan, what is very interesting here is the number 144 equals 9. And 9 was the number of HaSatan. He had 9 stones on his breastplate. And remember, Yah says he will cast him down, that he was amidst the stones of fire. So these are the stones on the altar that burn with the eternal flame of Yah, which is what the 144,000 are. And they are the foundation stone of the city of Jerusalem and the temple of Yah and the very altar of Yah. And so 1 + 4 + 4 replaces 9. And Jimi Hendrix had the song, if a 6 became 9, I don't mind. I don't mind. If a mountain fell into the sea, let it be. It ain't me, because I've got my own world to live in, and I ain't gonna copy you. Learn not the ways of the Gentiles. So many of the songs of the Hebrews have all this stuff coded into it. And of course, HaSatan would twist that for us to become like he is now. But in Yah's world, we replace the fallen. And that is why the enemy is so wrath. Okay? So, family, if you've made it all the way through, may Yah bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you. May he be gracious, lift the light of his countenance, and give you peace in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. I'll put up more videos, but probably just about once a week. I appreciate those of you who watch and download my videos, because my channel is a channel that is not liked by Sophia and the enemy. So praise Yah! When we are persecuted, we are blessed. Hallelujah. Love you in Yeshua. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit that notification button so that you can be notified of the videos as they come up. And please donate. I tend to use the donation money for photos for my videos. I don't really get that much money. So I get like maybe $100 a month from YouTube. So thank you for watching. Bless you. Shalom.